Okay. So many things. Oh, so many things to look at. Do I have everybody in the room? I think we're okay. Okay, so I'm going to go up first and talk about my deck, and I have quite a few things to show. First of all, I was published in 2007 through a publisher in Texas. There was interesting things that happened there, including they had printed 10,000 of my deck and 9,000 of them ended up in the Houston landfill, which was pretty crushing after a 7-year journey painting the tarot. And then it was republished in 2008, and then 2008 happened. So there was just, it just didn't really get a chance to get off the ground. And so I, even though at one point it was internationally distributed and all that, but the distributor went belly up in 2008 and all of that kind of stuff. So what I did is I rephotographed all my paintings. The originals are 30 by 40 and 24 by 36, and I did them with the Zeiss lens so we could do them high quality. And then I self-published on a Game Crafter. And one of the reasons I did that was because I was also not well. And so the idea of having decks and having to take them to the to the post office and all that kind of stuff, I didn't see that I could do that. And Game Crafter takes the order, prints the deck, ships the deck directly to the customer, and pays you, which is really nice, a month later from every sale. And the other nice thing that's about that you can do with a Game Crafter is you can have several iterations of your deck. So for example, I have my deck in jumbo size. So there's the back of the cards. And there's a card that, I don't know if that's focus, how that works on the focus. And then you can also get it in poker size. So for people who want the smaller hands, have smaller hands, or want to shuffle, or just have one that you can take anywhere you want to go, you can print it in that, or you can print it in jumbo. And then I also was able to, because of the cost of print on demand, there's the box that comes with the gold edition. I was able to either offer a box and the books that go with it. This is some of the books that come with it. Or I was able to offer it without a box and just with a small little booklet that goes with it. And that kept the price down for people that are buying it. And then you can also have it on Game Crafter, whether you can have plain text or plain cardstock, or you can have linen finish and UV coating. So when you do those kind of things, the price goes up. So now people can have a bronze edition with plain stock or a gold edition with the linen finish. And then I've also played around with a whole other idea. And I made Pearls of Wisdom Solitaire. And what this is a game, and it's also a full deck reading at the same time. Oops, sorry for all the crashing. So it comes with sheets that you can fill out the game as you play it. And then it's like a journal, so you can look for patterns. And this came from the fact that I love to play solitaire, and I kept seeing patterns and I kept going, well, this is just like a tarot reading and all of that kind of stuff. And so what we did is we took my cards and we did special numbers on them and for letters for the queen and all of that, so that it's easy when you're playing solitaire that they're red, black, and that kind of thing. And then I have another one that I did with both of the sides of the decks. So it's called the Platinum Edition, and it has both the jumbo and the poker size and a layout board and all the books that go with it. So that's the Pearls of Wisdom. And then I don't have an updated one because we changed the name of this. This is my Oracle deck, and it's Joy and Sorrow, or it was Joy and Sorrow, and now we've changed it to the Sacred Feminine Oracle. And I also have this one as an app, and the app designer is actually the one that suggested I change the name because the name Sorrow was, people kind of saw that and went, don't think so. And it was amazing what the difference in the name makes. So that's something when you're making a deck, is to really consider what the name is as well. And these are, again, the jumbo size cards, and then the guidance and the write-up is on the back of the cards. And this is more oriented to health and well-being, self-care, and that kind of thing. So the cards that you would choose out of it would tell you maybe to take care of yourself by making your room that you sleep in really nice, so that when you wake up you have a nice room to, or just to sleep sometimes, and that kind of thing. So that's what that is. And it's also now through Indigo's, I don't know if you can see that on there with the light, it's called the Sacred Feminine Oracle. And the neat part about this is out of France. It has readings that you can do on it, or you can browse, and then you just click on it and it flips over and it has the writing or the write-ups, and you can make a little bit of, it has a journal on it, you can email it to friends and all that. And the neat thing about this deck is you can try it for free, and you can own it for a small fee. But it's also, he's built it around a hub, so he has all the other Oracle decks that are that he produces. So once you have one, you can just add the next ones to your list and that kind of thing. So I find the Game Crafter to be really good. It is always improving, and you can make your own packages, whether you want this a tuck box or a clamshell box or that kind of thing. And it's all by uploading to templates and stuff that they have there. So if you're just starting out, it's worth going and looking there just to see what the different sizes of the cards are, because especially if you're trying to go borderless or something, you want to make sure that your aspect ratio is correct to fit the size of the cards and that kind of thing. So that's my deck. So we're going to go on to Linda, and she's going to talk about her deck.
So, hello. I've got, okay, I'm getting a bit tongue-tied all of a sudden. Let's start again from the beginning. So the pack I've created is called the Chalice Tarot deck, and I first completed it in the early 90s. I started it in the 80s. It's totally hand-drawn. There was no such thing as Photoshop in those days. That also meant I had to typeset the writing to go on each card myself. Later on, I wrote a book explaining the symbolism of the cards as well, and then much later on, around about 2006, my major arcana were published by Adam McLean. After that, I think I lost a card, and that inspired me, so to speak, to recreate several other of the cards within the deck. But I wasn't really able to do justice to the cards for a very long time. I knew about Photoshop and things like that, so I didn't have it, so I couldn't use it. And in fact, it wasn't until quarantine this year that I was really able to do the pack justice and bring it into the 21st century, so to speak. So I was able to get the borders totally straightened. I was able to get the typesetting totally equalized, and I was able to brighten up the colors. And I have the pack available on Game Crafter in 3 sizes. The first size looks like this. This is the average tarot size. It comes in a box that looks like this. And the cards themselves in this new style look a lot like this. So as you can see, it hasn't got a border. It's not got a double border, that is. Some people think that's probably better because you focus a lot more on the artwork. On the other side, you have got the moon and a simplified, the simplified rendition of the moon card in my pack. The moon actually is one of the very few cards that I didn't redo. I redid several of the cards until I was satisfied with them. But there are no shortcuts if you haven't got Photoshop. So it's a long struggle, and it was quite an eye-opener, very much an eye-opener, to find out just what Photoshop can do for you. I was using GIMP before that, but the stupid thing about GIMP after a certain while was that they didn't allow you to translate the cards into JPG or PNG. So that was extremely frustrating. They come in the poker size too. So that's a nice small size if you have small hands, as Roxy pointed out. And so on GameCrafter, you can buy them in the poker size. And finally, there's the jumbo size, just to show you, it's this pack. And so far on GameCrafter, they all come with a booklet. And I'll show you that too. It looks a bit like this at the moment, but this is an old version. And I've since updated it to look a bit more in line with the kind of style that I've created, but that's one of the older ones. And that's just gives you some very basic ways to interpret the cards. But the best news of all at the moment is that GameCrafter now allow you to put up the whole book. And I'm hoping to find time before Christmas to do that. Unfortunately, it means that I've got to change every single page into a format that GameCrafter likes. I'm not sure whether it's PDF, but I have a horrible feeling it's PNG. That's going to take a long time, but on the other hand, it's going to be another quarantine Christmas, so might as well do something with all that time, and hopefully even before that. Yeah. The cards are on Printer Studio as well, so although they don't come with a booklet there, but the marvelous thing about Printer Studio is that if you ship them to other countries, you still pay an awful lot, because I think basically they still come from Hong Kong, but you don't pay any customs. Whereas earlier on in the year, when I wanted to see what my earlier new version of the GameCrafter cards looked like, I had to pay a massive customs fee once the cards arrived, and they took ages to sort it out as well. Yeah. So that's the Chalice Tower deck. It's a lifelong enterprise, I suppose you could say. And I'm still working on finding a way to improve and hone on the marketing skills. Blowing your own trumpet's not my great forte. I just rather stay in my garret and create, but the world's not like that. But anyway, I'm always looking for new ways to get the cards to a wider audience. I've had 2 very generous interpretations recently. Not interpretations, I mean reviews. And hopefully there'll be more. So what's the latest news? The latest news is the Cascades Oracle. Just to show you up close up. This is based on a series of collages that I did many moons ago, although it's got some more modern cards as well, ones I've done more recently. There are 40 all in all, and you can see at the bottom, if you can see closely, I'll just get the one card, there's a caption at the bottom which tells you how to interpret the cards. And these are designed to stimulate the intuition, so they're abstract, but so you can read a lot into the symbolism and colors. I'll just show you another one. So that's called the Deep Blue card. You might not be able to make out the caption and the wording, but anyway, these are also on GameCrafter with a little booklet. I've also made them available in a smaller size on Printer Studio, but they don't come with a booklet there. And they come with a plain box on Printer Studio. I'm not sure what I've, yes, I think, I don't know what I've done in the box, to be honest, but it's a full pack and it's got everything that you need anyway. So it's not shrink wrapped the way they were on Printer Studio for a while. And that's it. So the book talks about the symbolism and the kinds of esoterica that I drew on to get the inspiration for each card. And it will be about 200 pages long. I've worked on the jacket and the spine for the GameCrafter, but as I've said, now I've got to get each page up. But I'm really looking forward to being able to show the book on that as well. There's an earlier version on blurb.com, but it's out of date now, really, because I've updated the cards. So I hope that's interesting, and all the details are here if you want to know more about my cards. And there's a couple of lovely interpretations which I've put on my YouTube channel as well. and hopefully you can see them there as well.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Another nice thing about the Game Crafter is they ship internationally. So and you can see where they go all over the world. So that's kind of a neat aspect of the Game Crafter as well. Okay, next we're up to Paula and her interesting deck. You have to unmute, Paula.
There, how's that?
Perfect.
Am I coming through?
Yep.
Okay, good. I went a little bit of a different path. My background is in graphic art, and then in the 80s I started working in museums. I'm not an illustrator. My deck, Boadicea's Tarot of Earthly Delights, is all Photoshop collage, and the source material is all from public domain fine art and natural history illustration and some commercial, like old advertising and stuff. Plus occasionally I'd have to take a photograph of something because I needed something that didn't exist. So I have hundreds of sources. Each card has anywhere from about 6 to 12 photos, images chopped and blended together in Photoshop. I don't know if you can really see through here because I'm not very brightly lit, but lots is going on in these cards. The deck is based on the Rider-Waite. It doesn't, a lot of the symbolism is the same, but it's just interpreted very differently. And unlike people who think print first, I initially thought app first because I was familiar with the apps from a company called Fool's Dog. And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to have my own, to do a deck and have it published as an app. And the other reason is the artwork that I did is very, very detailed. And with the app, you can really zoom in. But after finally, I started the deck in 2013, and I think it finally got published as an app in 2018. I have a full-time day job, so this was definitely a side project for me. And I was working on it in the evenings, and finally got it done, was thrilled to get it published, and then started getting feedback from people saying, well, when are you going to get printed? When are you going to get printed? So now I'm working with Carolyn Kenner, who I met through Fool's Dog, and doing a book. She's doing most of the writing, and I'm handling all the graphics and, the print production and all of that, because that's what I do. And in February, we'll be launching a Kickstarter for a deck in a box with a book, like a real full 200-page book. And I did decide to go with the jumbo size because of the detail. One thing that I've noticed when I'm reading reviews is no matter what you choose, someone is going to like it and someone isn't going to like it. So there's going to be people that are like, oh, those cards are too big. And then other people are, I hate those little tiny cards. I can't see anything on them. Or some of them are like, I love the book. Why isn't there a book? I'd like to read more. And then other people are like, oh, I never read the book. I read intuitively. So I think as an independent, self-publisher, I decided I'm just going to do what I want to do. This is going to be an initial run. It'll start at 1,000. If we get a better response on Kickstarter, we'll do more. And I very much focused on doing this the way I wanted a deck to be. I think that's a big difference than when you work with the bigger publishers. I did have the experience of a little bit of a flirtation with a publisher, but then they started telling me all the things they wanted me to change. And I was like, I'm not sure. This isn't really, what I wanted to do. And because, again, I have another job, this is kind of I won't call it a vanity project. I certainly wanted to break even at least, but I felt that the point of this was to be able to publish a tarot deck that was a deck that I really loved. And so much of the other work that I do, because I'm a professional designer, is designing for other people and making them happy and doing what they want, whether or not it's my particular vision or not. And so in a lot of ways, I was like, no, this is a very independent and unique vision. So
that's definitely one of the benefits of self-publishing, is it can be
yes.
exactly what you want, as opposed to them the publisher changing words or adding things that you didn't want, or like you
Yeah.
said, asking you to change something from the original artwork. So you could get to have all the control.
Yeah, and they were like, well, we want to redesign the backs because your backs aren't symmetrical. You can't really, your backs aren't symmetrical. And I'm like, well, I don't want my backs to be symmetrical, and, it just started getting in, it started snowballing a little bit. So in the long run, I'm very happy to be self-publishing. Working through a publisher, though, you end up doing a lot of work too. You fill out these questionnaires. It's like, will you do trips? Will you do this? Will you do that? How are you going to promote this for us? So, you're
anyways, yeah.
maybe not doing a whole lot less work. And when you self-publish, if you're successful, you keep more of the money. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a difference between doing a limited edition, like you were saying, 1,000, and doing print on demand, because the limited editions actually become something for collectors as well. Oh, so there's only 1,000 and now they're out of print, and now they're worth more. So there's I'm going to call them little games that you can play with it too in that respect, right? And having print on demand, it's always available until you decide not to print it. But for limited editions, like, okay, they're sold out. So now I've had my first edition decks on Amazon for like $700 that we don't get as artists, just because it's an out of print deck, right?
Yes, the person who has the deck gets the money, not you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One thing with print on demand, like I'm, flopping these cards around here, I got a couple of what I call stunt decks printed to use in the Kickstarter. And just a side note, since I can't shuffle, I'm getting my husband, who has lovely manly hands, to do the shuffling for me. So his hands will be featured in Kickstarter. But I got the decks from GameCrafter, and I say, if you're going to self-publish, you might want to order 1 or 2 decks and take a look, and then, go back and adjust the color. I'm sorry, if you're going to do print on demand with any of the print on demand people, because the technicality, I'm very into all the technicalness of it. What looked beautiful on screen and published beautifully as an app with super saturated, vibrant colors, once it was translated to print with this particular, printing, darkened up a whole lot. So I then changed the Photoshop, did some technical stuff, and then resubmitted it to get a better looking deck. So I would say, for those of you that are, really concerned about how they're going to look printed, is, pay the fairly nominal fee to get a sample printed, and then maybe fiddle with it a little bit and get another one printed before you mount it publicly.
Yeah, you want to get your proofs done and make sure that, because there's also a drift that can happen. You make sure you get your border straight, and there's a lot of things like that you need to do. But that's the nice thing about the print on demand, is that maybe it costs you 2 or 3 sample decks till you get it right. That's all your investment is. Where you're doing a Kickstarter, it's going to be a whole other thing. People are going to give you money to invest, so it's not coming out of your pocket. Then you get your printing, and then they mail it. The only thing I remember with Lisa de St. Croix did that, she forgot to add the shipping in there. And so basically all her profits went because she forgot to put the shipping in. So there's little things, and that's why we talk about stuff like this, because it saves people, heartache and sorrow. So thank you, Paula. And I'm excited to see that one. So Anna, could you please tell us about your amazing decks?
Hi. Well, it's been really nice hearing your process. And I can relate to a lot of the things. My journey started in 2016. So I worked in advertising for a number of years. I do have a fine art background. Painting and drawing was my undergraduate. And then in 2016, so I was home. I decided to stay home, and that kind of opened up my arena, because you know, previously I had to do things for other people, and creatively you're sucked to dry. Like you get home and there's like a blank sheet of paper on your mind. So in 2016, I decided, because I've been reading cards for over 20 years, tarot, and I decided to create my own deck for myself, and I made the Hidden Waters Tarot, which is this one right here. Let me just try and get it. There we go. So it was in a tin. I did it for myself. I wasn't planning on printing it or selling it. It was based on Rorschach images, you know, the ones where you ink blots where you put them together. And so what ended up was a bunch of these images that are symmetrical, and I think, yeah, they're upside down. But I spent 2 weeks locked up and making Rorschach images, and they were tailored towards each card. So, you know, I had like a list of all the cards in the major arcana and the minor arcana, because I usually will work like that. I'll go in order. And for each card, I decided to, you know, put something down. So they all ended up, I had to scan them. They were in acrylic, and those were the backs. And I realized that scanning acrylic, just like with oil, there's like a sheen to it when you scan or when you photograph. So there was a lot of photo editing when it came to that, like trying to get I was lucky because I knew how to retouch images. So I didn't have to hire anybody. Otherwise you would have to hire a retoucher, or, you know, try and teach yourself how to do this. So this was the first deck, and I went through Printers Studio, and I ordered a copy for myself, and then I submitted to Eclectic Tarot, just like a, you know, a deck that was created. And I had a website for it, this to show like what I did. I didn't have anything set up for purchase because I wasn't planning on selling, and I had a lot of interest in it. So then I had to go and you know, set that whole thing up, the price and all that. And since it was tins, I ended up having to do a lot of my hands. I would put felt on the tins and print my own labels, and it was a lot of production, and it took a lot of my time. But it was such a different deck in terms of, you know, beginners were maybe not, wouldn't have been a good one for beginners. It was more like to open up my own, you know, creative spark. I figured, you know, if you can read you should be able to read in anything, because you're pretty much accessing a different area of your brain. So it was like an experiment. And then I went ahead and switched from Printers to Make Playing Cards, because Make Playing Cards went and did the boxes. So the assembly of doing it by hand was just too much. I have 2 kids and they were little, and so I decided to do a second edition, and I designed the box and changed the backs and added another set of cards. So if you're gonna do a second edition, you have to like change some things to be worth, you know, people to buy. And then the second deck I made was the Oracle of Echoes, which is this one. And it's also from Make Playing Cards, and these are actually watercolor images. They were done with the community. So I put an Instagram question, like, what do you want to see in an Oracle deck that you haven't seen? And I had people just give me suggestions of cards, like, you know, have one for depression, have one for self-involved, one for balance. So what I did was I went in and incorporated all these ideas, and it took less than a month to draw 50 images to paint them, because they were all done very like loose watercolor. So I walked away from the acrylics and the oils. And you know, those are the backs. And then I decided, so usually for my decks, I will order a bunch from home and ship them because I like to write individual notes and pack them, and that way I have a little bit more control in terms of a deck gets lost, then at least I know that it's lost. And it just, there's a little bit more freedom, but it is also more work and footwork in the sense where you have to go and you know, do all the stuff that normally a printer would handle. So this was the Oracle of Echoes. And so it was more of like a light and dark Oracle. So it wasn't just all positive images, I guess, because a lot of Oracle decks have very happy, you know, feel good. So I went the other way around. And then the third one was the Clair de Lune Lenormand, which is this one. It's based on a Lenormand system. There's 36 cards, and this is the second edition. I had a first edition that was in a black tin, and I had to, again, assemble everything, wrap it with ribbon, put the felt inside. It looked really pretty, but it took too much time. So the images are, I don't know if you can kind of see, but they're all on a black background, and the backs are the moon. And these are actually done on, what is it, Etch-a-Sketch?
Scratchboard?
Scratchboard, right. Black scratchboard. And I then took them in Photoshop and colored them. So I added the yellow and the teal to make them look like they were hit by moonlight. And I had to do all the photo editing myself. Again, make sure the blacks came through. And, you know, it was a process because, like, you have to, and I did, for each one, I had to order sample decks to make sure that it was okay. And even now to this day, when I have decks come in, there will be some slight imperfections. I've had to actually cancel a whole batch because I got the decks in and they were like off color. Even though I've been printing for years, I had like 100 decks that were ruined. So I had to reprint. And then I have the Abyss Tarot, which is now coming out with US Games. That one started in 2016, yeah. At the same time with these, but I was like, it was pen and ink with nib, so that one took a long time to sketch out, to draw. And I had to put it on hold while I was illustrating the Bone Stone and the Earth Flesh. This one, I got hired to illustrate, meaning we collaborated on the images. She told me what she wanted, I illustrated them. So I was mostly, so I did design the box, the book and the cards, like laying out and flowing in all the text for the book, the book cover, dealing with the printer because, so this was the book, and then it was a black and white book, but laying out, it was a very big project because everything has to be, you know, schematics. And then this is the deck. My light is hitting, but these are just some of the cards that were illustrated. And I did print a proof through Make Plain Cards just to see how the colors were before they went to the printer. And this is the back. So and they added red gilding. The creator wanted red gilding on it. And so this is an indie published deck. It had a lot of issues in terms of creating and dealing with the printer. I would advise for anybody who is printing from, who's working on a computer. I have this, I'll show you, because I know, like, this is a, and if you work in any, they do this for you. It's called a SpiderDex Pro. It's a monitor calibrator. So you stick it on your screen, and then it'll calibrate your screen. And that way, you'll notice that most screens are very bright and white. And so when you look at your screen, everything is so hyper colorful, but then when you print, things are dull. You have to calibrate your screen and get it ready for the printer. And that way you're getting as close as possible to what it would look like, I guess, when you finally go to the printer. So I do that. I calibrate my screen a couple of times a year, and then I do have a print. I go to like Staples and run a proof for myself on the high gloss, because that'll give me all the imperfections of the cards. Like, if, you know, I won't print high gloss the cards, but at least I can actually see all the discrepancies if there's like dots and stuff like that. So I do have these pre-proofs, I guess, that I will do before I go to the printer. In terms of my experience, so my deck that's coming out with US Games, it's supposed to come out next year. It's been a year and a half since I handed it over, but with COVID, everything got pushed back. And so far, what I've seen, I've liked what the changes that they have done. And in my case, they did ask me every time, like, are you okay with this? Do you like this? And I had some changes, some major changes in some instances where they were accommodating. I found that if I gave them the reasons why I want to change them, not like because I just like it, but if I said, well, this image doesn't go with this concept, so there has to be, I think they need a kind of something to give them the reason to make the change, because they're looking at it from a marketing perspective. I prefer printing myself because, again, I have more control. And in terms of using the Bone Stone deck, I used, we went through a China printer, and it printed, there were 1,000 copies printed of this, versus make playing cards where I do in batches. And I have to say that it was very hard to deal with a printer that is overseas, a bigger printer, because the proof that you want to get from them in order to see the final product is about $400 if you want to get a proof from them, versus $20 that I can get from, or $30 from Make Playing Cards or somewhere else. So, it's a lot more money. I don't have guidebooks for my decks. I actually have, for the Lenormand, I have little cards, description cards for each one inside. So it comes with the deck. The Oracle of Echoes, I do have a guidebook, but I decided to make it a PDF guidebook. So I laid it out just like I would a book. It's very colorful, and I put a couple of versions online. So on the Oracle of Echoes website, there's a page that you can only gain access if you have a code from me. So when they purchase the deck, I will send them an email with the link of the code so they can download the PDF. And I have a version where it looks much better on screen, which is more colorful, has a lot of black in it. And then one that they can print, which is like a single page. It has a white background. That way there's not a lot of ink lost. And I have also a translated version in French. So I have multiple, based on the customers that, like if you have a lot of customers that are Spanish, it would make sense to have, a translation. But the PDF, that way it kept the production costs down. I didn't have to print a book. They can just download it, and I was able to keep the cost of the deck low. So those are my decks.
Thanks, Anna. I think one of the things is the cost. When you're self-publishing, we have to realize that And purchasers need to understand too that when a publisher prints 10,000 decks, they're getting their deck for $1 or $2 original cost. And when you're printing 100 or you're printing one, it's quite a bit more expensive. So our self-published decks are generally more expensive than ones that are published through publishers. Okay, next up is Christine. You can
Hi.
there.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. It's been wonderful listening to everybody talk. I'm so thrilled to be sitting in this group and in this august company. I started with Tarot in 1970 and spent 20 years just researching into the history of it because I discovered myself as an occultist with the Tarot in my hands since the deck I first started with was a very hardcore Masonic deck with all kinds of depth of field. So I kept having clashes between what I was learning in history and all the popular decks that were cruising around in the 20th century. I got a subscription to US Games, and every time their catalog came out, I bought everything that came from Europe. And again, I kept finding this clash between the English-speaking world and the history of Tarot. So I finally wrote my first book in 1999 about what I found in the gap between the history and the modern translated works. And then probably rattled around with I mean, I have quite a collection of decks, and dealing with this contrast and seeing clients all along, I would have, 30 decks on my table, and a client would get to choose whatever they wanted. And then I'd have to sit there making translations the whole time I'm reading based on whatever art style they wanted or whatever visual thing they responded to. And meanwhile, I'm trying to reverse engineer back to the history and try and speak to the cards from their roots. So I've been waiting for obviously what felt like centuries for somebody to actually come forward and say, let's do a deck together. And at different times, different friends, wonderful artists have asked me to make decks, but I noticed that the problem is most people wanted to have me guide their brush, practically stroke by stroke, as if I was, because they're asking me to download my brain through them onto paper. And I couldn't really do that. It was so much in here, and I hadn't really discovered myself as a writer, even when I did the text for the Tarot.com project, which was coming out at the same time as my first book. Those things were dictated and then transcribed. And that's how they became text. So it was only in the process of cleaning up my first book and the text for Tarot.com that I realized, this would be a lot easier if I would just sit down and write it when nobody's around instead of setting myself these horrendous dictation projects. So when I met Michael Dowers, my current husband, he had been working in the cartooning field for years and assembling comics, assembling volumes. And in that situation, you have a line artist, you have a colorist, you have a person who does the calligraphy, and then you have the editor who pulls it all together, designs the cover, so you're working on an ensemble. And he had always wanted to know if he did it, couldn't he do a whole thing himself? So he took on the Tarot, and he also did collage method. Here's the deck, Tarot, the Holy Light. I don't know what it takes for you guys to see this. This is the Devil card. It is all collaged from public domain images from the alchemical works of the 1600s. That was part of our courtship, I guess. I showed him a couple of books and I said, doesn't this look like tarot card images on steroids? And he said, huh, and off he went into his studio, and this stuff started pouring out. And so here again, he didn't need me to sit and tell him what to do. I had in the meanwhile written a text for a British publishing company, and that text had never ended up to print. So that became the core text for the Tarot, the Holy Light book. And he did have that to work with. It was about the history of the imagery in Tarot. But his imagery was so startlingly different on so many things that I ended up rewriting many of the cards anyway. But in the end, he gave me a vehicle that I could cast historical Tarot ideas into using historical imagery. And I could, do this end run around the problem with what happened at the turn of into the 1900s, when this major bifurcation, the separation between the occultism of Tarot versus the art and visual and imaginative stimulation, which is where Tarot has gone in the 20th century. Deeply, deeply invested in capturing the eye of the client and going into their imagination and stirring things up. So this is very different than where I come from as a formal occultist and historian of esotericism, attempting to represent what the Renaissance magi who built the deck were trying for. And so I've had to reverse engineer. That was part of the work of doing the writing for Tarot.com, because I had to reproduce each card in 20 iterations based on any number of positions it might fall in and any number of readings. And I had to design all that myself, because they had no idea how to do it. They came to me and said, "Can we do this?" And I said, "Sure." And then I had to go home and figure out how. And many people told me at the time they would never have done such a project, and it was not possible. We're talking 1999, and everybody told me that was not possible to do. But I thought, wait a minute, it's a calculator. This is a recombinant machine. This is a computer for the 1400s. What you have to do is just visualize every possible option and then write into it. And then I had to reverse engineer how my mind worked to do a reading so that I could determine what order every little slice of information was going to come up in this card, in this position, in this spread, in this deck. And I had to call in a group of decks that were close enough to the Renaissance model so that there wouldn't be the visual clash, right? Since then, they've collected another 50 decks over there, and there is visual clash sometimes between what's illustrated and what I've written. But the text was sturdy enough to where it continues running to this day, and people all over the world discover Tarot through it. So I know in my heart of hearts that it was designed to be a Renaissance calculator. And I have since discovered in my research the numerological and astronomical basis of this as well. So this deck actually works with all the old grimoires and all the old magical books of the first 500 years of Tarot's history. And when people say, well, you can't know whether it was originally magical or not, I say, well, you can't know that, but I have proved that for myself, and anybody who wants to take the time and trouble can reprove it for themselves. We have much better resources now in the 21st century, now that there are college departments on Western esotericism. Much of what I found in my private study has now been documented at the universities. So I feel pretty confident in what we did. What happened afterwards was a big shock to both of us, however. First of all, when Michael, who, as I said, was a book publisher for years in the comics industry, when he went to take this to print, we followed Pamela's connection through the company in Florida to China, and went through it with them. And Michael did something very expressive, and that's very characteristic of himself. He had his brother do the painting on the box, and this is also the cover of the book. Well, this is not the art inside the deck, and I can't tell you how much feedback we got from people. What in the world did you do? When in the 70s and 80s, it was not always expected that the art on the box would match what was the deck on the inside. So it never occurred to me to question this, but man, it was quite a imbroglio for a little while. Now people have sort of gotten used to us and they know we're eccentric and it's not going to change. So there you go. But we did also have a different back on the first edition, and we changed the back for the second edition because a bunch of people complained about the back, and Michael thought, all right. So second edition will have a different back. And then a bunch of people complained that they didn't like the new back. So heck with it. You cannot please everybody. You do what you want to do, and that's as best as can be done. We also, he had been making mini comics for years in his own private universe, having a good time, showcasing art of people who would never get published in a traditional sense. So he made the Little White Book here at home for years in mini comic style with his little paper cutter and stapler. But after he did about, went through the first 1,000 copies and we did the second edition, he said, no more of that. And so now the Little White Book is now done by the printer as well. And we have a smaller edition, just a standard size that is print on demand. And we have a black and white version too that I finally talked him into, because the images themselves were originally black and white, these gorgeous engravings from the 1600s. And the line art is just stunning. And it's a totally different effect, black and white and color. So I would really suggest to people that if you do your work in line style first and then do your coloration second, you might consider looking at whether that black and white version of the deck is itself strong enough to stand alone. Because there are definitely reasons, as you will discover. My first deck was black and white, and it taught me how to reason with the cards rather than just emote. And this is where, because the color is so seductive and so moving, is that with anything that's made in color, it has an entirely different effect on you and what the eye can see compared to anything that's done in black and white, which has entirely different, leads your eyes different ways because of our, the print world that we live in now. And I had no idea about this assembly of the image to lead the eye until Michael came along either. But his experience in the world of comics, this is what they have to do in comics. You have to put 50% of the action in the image because there's never going to be enough text to explain it all. So the image has to be very gripping and moving, and it has to be dimensional and give suggestions in ways that your basic flat artist doesn't think. So he educated me tremendously in how to look and how to see. I think that's partially, we discovered each other in our courtship, taking each other to museum shows and then teasing each other about what we saw in the art. So between us, I think we've done a very good piece of work. And then more recently, I inveigled him to color another deck. This is the Udes Picard Tarot, was only ever in black and white. He only had 50 of them printed in 1908 or 1907 and thought he would get them colored himself. Maybe 10 of them ever got illustrated. But he got his written works out into the world. And so Casey Duhamel bought one of these black and white copies and sent us images, and Michael colored it, and we finished it up. Oh, I should show you the back. If you ever see this deck with this back, here's his lovely tower card. So again, this was a esoteric deck that's just been languishing in obscurity because nobody ever took the time to, finish it, make it into something. And I'm just completing the book right now. I'm at a stuck spot because I want to do more, but at the same time, I'll exceed what my previous mandate was. And that's one of the problems with doing it yourself, is figuring out when it's done. And, if you don't have somebody there telling you how, where your edges are, then it's really up to you. And I certainly found trouble stopping writing. And so I can see how an artist would have trouble stopping creating, you know, and no wonder you want to have extra cards, or you want to maybe double some cards in case people want to have different versions, like 2 males or 2 females. It's quite interesting. I do suggest that people lay out their parameters before they start, so that if they, again, exceed their mandate 2/3 of the way through, they don't find themselves having to do 125% of the work just to get one project finished. Now that can't always, you know, you can't always force yourself to just stay inside your tight little boundaries, but at least it's a discipline that might save you doubling back and, you know, throwing yourself around. I do, just like the carpenters say, measure twice, cut once, you know, do your experimentation early on as much as you can, so that by the time you think you're done, you might actually be closer to done. And then I also agree that you've got to be willing to haggle with the printer. You've got to go back and forth with them. You know, I can't believe how much time Michael spent in the middle of the night talking to China, and, you know, just every different stage of the production. I could never have done this without him, because I don't have the stuffing. I mean, this is a willpower work. I so admire people that have done multiple decks because of this. Just one deck is enough to make me roll my eyes up in my head and fall over backwards. I mean, I don't know how you all, with your massive creativity, keep foaming with tarot decks. So I just absolutely admire everybody here, and I want to thank you for bringing me on. And if there's any questions people have.
Yeah, we're gonna do questions at the end. We still have to hear about her Jade's deck. And, you know, that is part of it. And also editing. It's really good to have an editor, somebody who doesn't maybe even know anything about tarot, just to look at it and read it and look for all your mistakes, or look for your bad habits. Like I tend to put the first part of the sentence at the end, needs to be put in here. A lot of times we use the same words over and over again. It becomes a bit mundane to read. So it's good to have an editor if you can do that. Okay, mysterious looking Jade there in the dark. You look so sexy. Could you unmute your microphone and...
It's because it's late.
Oh, you're coming in a bit funny.
It's nearly 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Yeah. That I'm trying to move nearer to the box. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate that. Where do I start? I read with the tarot from the age of 18. I was given a set of tarot and I didn't really get on with it, so I decided, okay, I'm going to try the Thoth deck, and then that was me. I started reading for other people with the Thoth deck, and then I started path working with the Thoth deck, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And then my first deck just started to emerge during that process. The first deck was the Soulscapes deck that I made, and I published that myself with Printer Studio. I found them really good, and the quality was fantastic. That was the year Charlie and Kristen appeared, so I really didn't have a great deal of time to do any promotion or anything like that. So I just sold it to friends and family and through my website at the time. And then I wrote 22 path workings, which I called The Initiate's Way. And I started using those myself. And when I was using those, I thought, oh, these would be good as tarot images. So I started one a month, doing the path working and then creating the painting. So once I had the 22, then I went on and did the rest over the space of a year with the seasons. So I tried to align each of the 4 to the seasons. After creating those, I went a different route this time, and I wanted them to look like the old-fashioned Marseille style, just the small with no rounded edges, just square. Looked at me and went, "You want us to make tarot cards? Okay." So we had a discussion, like a proper business meeting. I felt right out of my depth in this business meeting with these three men in suits. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? But it was fantastic, and they were so supportive, and the guy who I worked alongside helped me to realign some of the images to make sure that they looked good, and he helped me with all the stuff, putting the titles and the numbers and everything on. And then when I got them back, I thought, wow, that was such an easier process than the first time I did a media degree, 2007. So I'm very lucky I got to do all the Photoshop and do my own website and stuff like that. So that helped enormously in the creation process, because I photographed them and went through the whole process of making sure that the saturated colors came out, so that when you look at the images, you see all the colors and you kind of fall into the deck. I guess it's a lifelong thing, one of those things that you know you're going to do, you just get stuck into it. The willpower carries you along. And when I got to the end of it and thought, wow, that's it, this one's done, now what do I do? Then I thought, okay, well, I've got all these path workings, what shall I do with them? So I sent them to one of my friends and I asked her, would you have a look at these and see if you think, is it worth trying to publish these? And she sent them back to me and said, yes, absolutely, send them off. So I didn't really want to go down the publishing.
We're freezing up a bit.
Oh no, no. Is it back on again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky that I have friends who are publishers. So I sent a very first draft that I was like, oh my God, it's like letting my baby out of my house. And I sent it to him and he said, that's really good. I'm going to go through it with you and make sure that, you know, it's all typeset properly and all your grammar and things like that. And he went through it and sent it back to me. And I thought, oh, okay. Yeah. And the process of working with him was also fantastic. And I think it would have come to light without the help from my friend editing, and with his input, it's just been amazing. And in amongst all you guys, I am in awe of everybody, because you're all so talented. It's just amazing to be here, to be able to present this to you guys as well. Thank you for inviting me into this. There are options I have now for the future that I didn't know about, thanks to listening to you. Game Crafter is not something I'd ever thought of before, but seeing your stuff and everything that you've put together, that's fantastic. So I'm going to go away with lots of ideas now of stuff and have a go at Game Crafter, because it's not something I've ever considered or thought of. But I will show you very, very quickly. I'll just pick one at random. See, the cards are, I don't know, can you see that, the size of them? They're kind of almost poker size. Okay, apparently we've got the Prince of Swords. There you go. Each one of them was a painting, and like Roxy, some of them are huge, some of them are small, but I like the process of birth.
Oh, you're freezing again.
No, my internet needs to behave. Hang on, it's
Oh, no, you're frozen.
Is it back on?
Now you are. You're kind of frozen. Why don't I take you off the video and just talk? Maybe that.
Yay!
Let me try that. Take you off video. Stop video. Okay. Now just keep talking. Can you hear? Ask you unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, there we go. What are you doing there, Linda?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You go ahead.
Okay. So the book, the text for the book preceded the images. And when I first started out writing it, it was for lots of different reasons. It was for a learning experience for me, because I was going in and doing all this inner realm traveling and journaling. And it occurred to me at a point that this isn't just my imagination. This is something that's coming through, and it needs to be out there. I felt like I tapped into a source or a stream that I could share with other people, in the hope that they could share a part of the journey and access these inner resources for themselves. So I guess it's more about my understanding of spiritual alchemy and the practical journey that you can go on in the tarot. So it's not just about reading, and that the goal of the enlightenment experience is reaching that place within where knowledge just erupts like a fountain. So I wanted to be able to share this journey with other people. So the 22 path workings are available in the book. The 22 magical images are all deck I made with the help of the publishers. They come as a package or separately, depending on what a person needs. And if anybody wants to go and try out the path workings, there's a group on Facebook, Initiates Way, and there's also a channel on YouTube. If you just search for my name on YouTube, it'll pop up. So I've rambled at you guys way too long. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jade. It's great now, you know, back when Pamela and I were starting, there was the A Eclectic Tarot, and that was it, right? But it was also, when I was painting my deck, I realized that there was an audience out there, because I was in the forest in the backwoods of BC. What did you know, how do you connect? And now we have Facebook and all these groups and YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. So as indie artists, we have way more at our fingertips than we did when Pamela and I started. Absolutely, you know. So yeah, and we had this pretty cool connection right off the bat, because we were on that A Eclectic Tarot top 10, and we were both using runes in our deck, and we both started with the same, and then all of that kind of stuff. So it was like this instant connection that we had and have continued to this day. So Pamela, now it's your turn to tell us about your decks.
Okay. The Steel Wizard came after 20 years of reading tarot, when my cousin called me one morning and said, "I've got a new publisher." I said, "Good for you." She said, No. You know that deck you've had in your head for over 20 years? Yep. Why don't you get it out and onto something? So, because he's looking for a tarot deck. And that was October 21st, 1999. I went to the International New Age Trade Show in Denver in June, and I took it with me. I'd finished it, the whole thing. Like I wrapped up the last one before I got on the plane. And I got there, and well, needless to say, it didn't happen. Publisher issues, new publisher, didn't work. So a couple of years go by, and I talked to different publishers, but we were at that point, you kind of needed an agent to get into publishing, but you couldn't get an agent unless you were published. So I said, piss on it. Anyway, I started looking for a printer, and that's when I met, at the time it was called Cards Are Us. And I called him up in Florida, and I said, "Hi, my name is Pamela Steele. Would your company be interested in publishing a tarot deck?" And this very pleasant man on the other end said, "I'd love to. What's a tarot deck?" Okay. So we had a bit of a conversation, and then I met him the following year in Orlando. And I took him a CD of all of this. And what someone said earlier about, maybe Roxy, it was you that said, sometimes it's better to get someone who knows nothing about tarot to read your book. Because in the interim, I'd had to rewrite the book and didn't have a clue what I was doing, because I never thought of being a writer or anything. So anyway, put together this little book, It's really pretty basic. It goes through things like care and feeding of your deck, how to look after them, ethics, shuffling, stuff like that. But as far as the interpretations, really, it's just a picture of the cards and the guidelines, because I didn't think it was necessary. I explained it. You can see the picture. Why do I need to explain it? Anyway, in the midst of all this, my computer literally went up in a puff of smoke. I was thinking about burning bridges, and all of a sudden I could smell smoke. I thought, what the heck? I looked back up, blue screen. Great. So in transitioning from one computer to get the new one, I was using a borrowed one that wouldn't hold my format settings. So I sent the book to Charles in Florida at Cards R Us, and it kept showing up in 8.5 by 11. It was supposed to be 6 by 9 or 5 by 7, one of those, 5 by 7. Anyway, as it turned out, the day I got my new computer, I quickly sat down, redid the book in the proper format, sent it to him, and as I went back and checked my email, he had sent me his version of it. And when he started the email, he said, I'm glad I had a chance to do this. I have a working knowledge of tarot. Let's do this book in color. Sure, why not? So things started to progress. And I mean, you're talking 2004? 2005. And my first question was, okay, how am I going to finance this? Because I wanted to print. Nobody told me you would only sell about 250. So I printed 2,000. I sold at 250 in the first day. We launched July 31st at 5 o'clock in the evening. By the next morning, I had over 50 orders. And throughout the next 2 days, I hit that 250 mark, which was great. In fact, we were in the second printing edition. Oh, by the way, first printing comes in a 2-part box. Pretty handy. I actually scanned in a piece of leather to make this book cover. This was the first deck, and it is really shiny, but we didn't know what we were doing. And the backs, and they're twin dragons. Well, actually, there's 2 sets of twins. But in order to finance this, what I did was I sold my house. I don't recommend it, but I did. And got out, and luckily I had them distributed through New Leaf. Later, some other people I met distribute out of Portland, and I'm also hooked up with Quanta out of Toronto. So it worked out like it was a process over the next few years of getting your self-published deck into the distributors, and it can be done. I mean, yes, you're wholesaling, but we're looking at volume here too. And within a few years, I had enough money in profit off of the first edition to do the second one. They're a little bit smaller borders. They're a linen finish. I like them way better. I redesigned, where are they? There we go. I redesigned the backs, and I like these a lot better too. But when the dust settled and the air cleared, I got to thinking about it, and I've redone it a 3rd time, got them all rescanned. The next edition is going to be borderless, and I've rewritten the book, and it actually describes in detail the images. I never really understood the sense in that, except people kept asking me, what were you thinking? Truth was, I wasn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because over the years, people have commented on elements of your work, of this deck, that I never saw. There's one in here called the Maiden of Pentacles. And I was doing one of those online radio interviews with Donna de la Rose. And she said, I love how you've added the whale's tail and the elephant in the background behind the maiden. And I said, what? So I had to get the card out and look, and sure enough, over her right shoulder is a whale's tail, like it's diving into the ocean. And over her left shoulder is an elephant's trunk. And somebody else said, oh, and the all-seeing eye above her head. And I'm going, yeah, I don't remember anyway, pay attention, because people will see things that you miss. Because when you're in that creative mode, you're just doing what it tells you to. And I mean, really, to get a deck out in 9 months, the only person I know that did faster than me was Benabel. And she is a machine. The second deck was because my granddaughter asked for a tarot deck. And as I was mentally cataloging the appropriate decks for a 9-year-old. She looks up at me with these big cornflower blue eyes and says, Grandma, will you make me one? And before I could disengage my brain, I said, of course I will, sweetheart. So the never say never thing applied. It comes in a 2-part box, again, printed by the same printer. I didn't do quite as many copies on this one. The inside, all decorated, everything is, you know, magnetic closed, the whole 9 yards. Comes with, this is the fun part, a coloring book. All 78 cards I saved as black and white line drawings. That upside down? No. So what you get to do is you get to go through it and color your own. I do recommend to people that you print them off before you do it, like flatten the book out, take them apart, because it's really high quality paper and they're hard to color on. But this deck was a lot of fun. It has a little more in the book, again, colors. But what I had, my friend Bonnie Chauvet, Tarot Birth Cards in You, a bunch of other stuff. Oh, she's amazing. Anyway, she wrote 4 questions for each of the cards that you ask yourself. And by getting someone else involved, I mean, she not only read the book for me, but I had 3 different people editing this book because there again, I didn't want to miss anything, but it's a Rider-Waite clone. It's exactly that, because what I had was the Rider-Waite deck. I bought the new one because my old one, nope, nobody touches that anymore. But the new one I had out, and every card, they're poker sized, and every card I had the Rider-Waite version sitting in front of me. There are no naked people in this deck. I have so much fun with this thing. The Tower, any of the scary cards, like the 10 of Swords is a scarecrow. They've all got little gremlin faces or eyes in them or hands or something, except for the courts. The courts are all dragons. But these little borderless cards have been so much fun. I've taken them to dress clubs. I took them to a curling rink one time where, oh, come and read for us. And oh, do you read tarot? And one of my favorite questions to be asked is, you read tarot. Are you a witch? Listen, honey, owning a hammer does not make me a carpenter. So I'm going to go with no. The backs on these two, they're completely reversible. And I'm kind of anal about that when it comes to card backs from my decks, because I always include reverse meanings. There's some decks that don't, that's fine, but my decks do. I'm really considering going with print on demand for the 2nd edition of or the 3rd edition of the Steel Wizard. I don't know. Let's see how Schiffer does with the Eternal Seeker Oracle. If I really am happy, then I'll probably ask them if they want it. But otherwise, one way or the other, it's getting out. What I like about the creation process is when you start doing it, it's like Christine and I had this conversation a few years ago. I don't know if she remembers or not, but the question was, do you believe that the deck chooses its creator? Yes, I do. Because when the Steel Wizard came, okay, my nickname was Wizard back in the 80s. A lot of this goes back to the 80s, including the Wizard's Pets. They were a cartoon series that I did in the 80s. But that nickname stuck. And so when it came time to name my deck, and I came up with a dozen different names, and finally somebody said to me, why don't you name it after you? And I said, what? That's stupid. No, call it the Steel Wizard, you moron. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. And I really liked it. So yeah, I kept it. The Wizard's Pets was the original name of the original group. But what it comes down to is when the inspiration fairy or your particular muse gets a hold of you, they don't just gently come in and say, oh, we're going to create a tarot deck, you lovely thing, get your tools out and we're going to go for it. No, it puts you in a headlock and it says, look, you're doing this. So just get your stuff out, make some space and get her done. So that's kind of where it happened. And I'm pretty impressed with it. I think one of the best things that Roxy and I ever did was start the Tarot Deck Creators. Well, I think we started as a page and then we moved it into a group. Mostly because in the creation process, you're going to be doing stuff that you don't want to show to the public, and if you do, you better watermark it because they're going to steal it. Somebody will steal it. And there's really not much we can do as artists right now online. We can try, but to protect your work, watermark it all the way down the line. Don't put anything on it that you don't want the people to see. And that's why it's a private group, but we have a public page, and that public page is where we are able to show off, like anybody who's starting, like Paula in your Kickstarter, as soon as it comes out, we're going to be promoting that. Everything that goes on, we work together. If we don't work together, we're going to fall together. And I don't know, I'm just pretty happy with the whole process. And we've been doing it over 10 years now.
Yeah. And it's just nice that, you know, you can get up there. I think somebody was saying they don't like to toot their own horn. I mean,
No.
Some of us are better at that than others, but it's really nice if you post something and somebody else shares it out for you. So it goes out to their audience. So now I always kind of look at it like people go, oh, well, if we all go after the same pie, you know, the pieces get smaller and smaller. And the idea isn't really that. It's like growing the pie bigger, right? So that people that liked my deck, now they like your deck, and, you know, like that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of people are addicted to buying tarot decks, which is a good thing for us. But you know what I mean? Like people collect and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not like, I don't really ever feel it's competition, you know. And another thing, you know, what sounds like what's happened today is that everybody had some help from somebody else. I know I did, my son did all the technical stuff and the photography and all of that, and he's built our webpage. And it's like, look to other people that have the expertise. You can't be everything in this process. And like you were talking, Christine, about the comic books, and one person does this and does this and does this, you know, like sometimes when you take a deck, just, you know, painting 78 images or however you create them, that's a pretty daunting task just in itself. And then to write the book and put that all together, and then to have to go to the printer, and like you think about all this, that's why I went Game Crafter, because that took a lot of those extra things out of the story for me and just let me bring it that way, right? But you know, you've used Printer Studio and all of that kind of stuff. And then you did yours where you got so many printed, and now you're doing, there's Kickstarters now where you don't have to sell your house anymore, Pamela.
Kickstarter, Kickstarter.
Right? And
Don't have my house.
And it's been really nice to see such a exchange of ideas, and to see so many different processes. I mean, tarot kind of has a structure to it, but there's so many ways that you can ride on top of that structure and bring your own vision. And, you know, I came to mine because I was ill, and it was a way to have something to do, right? You know, because that's what I could still do was paint, right? And so for me, it was like going through the tarot was a path to healing. I had read the Medicine Woman Tarot and seen that, and so that was a very big inspiration. And you get inspired by other people's decks, and you get, you know, there's just so much out there now. I mean, think when we started, Pamela, maybe there was 1,000 decks, and I mean, how many are there now? Like 100,000?
Have
Like
a couple of zeros.
you know, and just having, you know, Zoom things like this, or like the pages on Facebook and all of that. It's really shown that it's not a finite subject by any stretch, and everybody can have their own spin on it. So maybe if we want to do some questions, we could have our audience here ask questions. We have one about a website and social media, but haven't started posting works in progress. Well, that's a good idea to get people on board. Some people, like, you know, Paula, you've been showing different cards of yours as you've gone along, and you know, Pamela, you did that with your Wizard's Pets, and that's a good way to gain a following. You also want to gain an email list, so that you can send out updates to people, and you want to build your Facebook page. Like you might have a page for each deck that you do, or you might just have your own one page that sometimes it's better to have everything to come to one, and other times maybe it's better. I don't know. You can speak maybe more to that, Pamela, because I just have one page. But we need a web page. And what we did was, as a group, we did a web page too. and that can be, you can be added into that as well. Here, you can put your video on if you want, Jade. So, you know, as a group, it ended up being what, I don't know, we pay $50 or something like that each, but we got a web page that has everybody's deck on it. So now when somebody sees that, not only are they seeing your deck, but they're seeing everybody else's deck. So that was kind of the whole concept behind the deck creators. And also the really cool is just that you got to meet so many people and other creative people that have a similar, you know, mindset and all of that. And yeah, so like learning how to do Instagram and hashtags, tarot readers of Instagram, hashtags, all those kind of things, that really helps when you go to market your work to have as many different ways that you can do that. And now on Facebook, if you have a page, you can also post to Instagram at the same time, which is nice because before you could just post off your phone. So it just keeps changing all the way along, and the printers get better and the cardstock gets better. And, you know, it's kind of been a whole lot of changes in a short period of time.
Well,
I
think
also
about
think that if you don't have if you're just starting off and you don't have previous decks, right now, people are very reticent to put in the money if they don't know you, like, you know, is the deck going to come out? Is it going to take a couple years, especially on Kickstarters? So I think that the more that you keep people interested in your work, so Instagram I find is great because it's easy to build up a following. Facebook, not so much. I mean, I guess it could work if you're very active on it, but Instagram is very image oriented. So if you create a card and you post a snippet, and then people see that you're actually working on the deck, and it's something that is not stagnant, they will have more faith that you will put out the product, because in a way they're interacting and they get to know you a little bit, versus if you have no presence and say maybe you do have a Facebook but it's a personal account and you're not very active, then when you put up a Kickstarter or a pre-order, you might not have that many people invest, not so much because they don't like your style, but because people will say something, oh, I'll just wait till it's out and then I'll buy it, which immediately will decrease your sales. You won't be able to hit that mark. What you want to do is people to put in the money at the beginning of your product so you can actually order more decks and put it out. And I find now, because I'm on a lot of the Facebook groups, people say, I'll just wait for it to come out and then I'll buy it, because I want to make sure that it's coming out. So the more that you engage with your audience, the more that you put up, okay, I finished a card. This is what the deck looks like. Look, I got a sample product, so it's done. And then you launch, you already have, if you have 200 followers, then you pretty much would have 200 potential purchases that would, help you get your target. So that's I would definitely go with Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, Pinterest is another one that's really good too. I mean, I've got all 3 of my decks on Pinterest on their own boards. And I posted those links a half a dozen times. Not everything is watermarked on websites, everything, because I've got 2 websites too. But I know I'm kind of a glutton for punishment. But when it comes down to that, then they say, well, what else have you got? But okay, building a following, like Anna, like you're talking about, that is one of the most important things that a deck creator can do. Everybody's heard of Eric Dunn and his Tarot Illuminati. Well, somebody posted his High Priestess on, I think it was Tarotaholics Anonymous. Nobody knew who did it. It was just this flash in the pan. Oh my God, and it's gorgeous. Okay. Well, I'm pretty good at finding people if I really, really want to. I'm kind of a stalker. And so I did. I hunted him down and I found his page on DeviantArt, and I introduced myself and said, come into Facebook. I want to do and he said, no, I'm never going to finish it, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote back and I said, I didn't make myself clear. I said you're going to do this. So come on, kid, let's get on the horse and do it. Well, the next thing you know, he did show up on Facebook. We put him in the group, started working with him on different things. And then he started his own pages, his own groups. And by the time Los Scarabeo published his deck, he had over 10,000 followers. Now, out of all the followers you got, 50% of them are not going to bite. But that meant that was just on Facebook. Okay, so they had, by the time they published the first 10,000 copies, they already had the second 10 on the printer because they sold out that fast. So if you have a really good product, you got a really great deck, and you know how to promote, and you've got a whole team behind you helping you, you're going to do okay. You're going to do fine. So yeah, Anna, you're right. Instagram is one of the greatest things. I have trouble with it on my phone, but I figured out a way to do it on my computer. It's not hard. You just have to do a little trick here and there. And I've learned, like, what I've been doing is a daily post with the Oracle deck I'm working on, because it's due to be released the end of March, 1st of April, according to them. And I've just been having a lot of fun with it. I've even been using the last card in it as my profile picture. And oh, what's that? That's my eyeball up really close. Not really, but the main thing is, if you're not loving what you do, if you don't love it, it's not going to love you back. So remember, just keep loving it. Because even if you get mad, it's like getting mad at your kids. It's okay to get mad at your kids, but you're not going to hate them and be mad forever.
Yeah.
Just work through it.
Okay, we got a couple questions here that maybe people can answer. One of them was whether or not there's an outline for a booklet. And I don't think there is any particular outline for a booklet.
Okay, so there's a couple ways that I've seen. If you go to, I'm not sure about Printer Studio, but Make Playing Cards, and I'm maybe Game Crafter, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go with a standard size tarot box, a tarot card, so they give you templates, and then you upload your images on the template. So the template comes in usually either a Photoshop format or an InDesign format. So then you create your cards. Now, if you have 78 cards, they also have the template for the box that would house the 78 cards. And there is also an option in the how you structure it if you want to include a booklet. So if you include a booklet, then it will give you the option there, like, okay, to download the booklet template, and you can put up your design your text to fit into that template, and then it will fit into the box. So if you don't have a booklet, then the specs of the box will be different versus if you have a booklet, because obviously the width of the box is different.
Yeah.
So that's one option. The other option is if you say write a book and you can sell it separately. You can publish it maybe on, you go on Amazon, for instance, their space. They will give you templates for books also, like you can choose your template. It comes in a Word format. And then you will just, write in that format that they give you. You download the document. And then when you upload it, there's two sets for the book. So you have the cover, which is a little is bigger than the book layout, the pages, and then the book. So that's the Amazon version. So if somebody wants a deck, they'll buy the deck separately. And then if they want to purchase the book, then they would go and purchase it from Amazon. Yeah. And then the third option is if you actually go to a separate publisher, like for instance, a bigger, not publisher, if you go to a printer, like most of them are in China because they're cheaper. But if you go to the Chinese printer, you still have to choose your card size. So you will say, my card size is this big, whatever size that is. Then the printer will ask you what size of, what type of paper that you're using, if it's thick, thin, whatever, and then you tell them the box, and you also say, I want to have a book in it. So it's your choice in that case if you want to design a bigger book to fit, like this one this one had a book that is the size of the box, or you go with a smaller box, a smaller book that fits inside the size of a tarot card. And then the printer will tell you, okay, these are the specs for the book. Like this is the size that you have to make it. So then you have to go in and adjust your Word document and also adjust the cover. So it's a little bit more complicated when you're actually working with a separate printer, because you have that back and forth where you tell them what you want, then they'll send you a schematic for the document that you actually have to send them back after, and then they play with it. It doesn't fit. You need to change it a little bit. In that case, you would have to have a graphic designer, because you have to take the text from a Word document and flow it into a program that will create a book, and then that goes to the printer. So it's easier if you stay with either Amazon or with printers, Make Playing Cards, or maybe Game Crafter, where they have a template. You're a little bit more limited in terms of how many pages, but they do have that standard.
Yeah, there's Lulu too is another one.
Lulu, okay, I haven't tried that one.
Yeah.
Although, Reese, was your question not so much about the physical formatting of the book, but about the formatting of the text, what to write about? Wasn't
Right.
clear what you were asking.
Right. Like the formatting, I can kind of figure out. I don't know how to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. So that's my question.
Do you have a number of decks? I suggest look at them, or go to the bookstore, get some different, I had a couple of books and I just wrote an outline, and I'm working with someone who really is a writer to do the writing, but to do it yourself, it's like, look at some of the guidebooks and see what you like and what format they follow. That would be how I would start. And once you've written it, definitely get someone who's going to edit for you.
A simple way to do it, Reese, is to take a look at your card, whatever it is, and describe it. Okay, we have someone who's sitting on the beach in front of the lights and the moon is in the sky, and explain what the symbolism that is in there as you go. So this one's the boats coming in, so you could explain what the image is in words, and then put in what the symbols mean, the symbolism that means. So that's kind of like a basic, simple way that you could start. But yeah, getting somebody to edit you is really important. Okay, you went mute here.
It's your deck, so it's your book. So the only thing, I guess, if you want to structure it, if you don't want to have reversals, you don't include them if you don't read with reversals. If you just want to have a simple 1-paragraph description of what you did or what you felt when you wrote that card, you can do just that. If you want to incorporate previous history on tarot, then you can, say, oh, this is what it normally means. This is what I think. So I think it just depends on you, because if you create the images, you're the best person to describe your images. Even if you had somebody else write it, you'd still have to give them, a document with your ideas for them to read it and then rewrite it. But because unless you're working like in publishers, you have an illustrator and a writer, and they kind of marry, and they hang out, and they just talk, and the illustrator will tell the writer what they want, and then the writer will go and they write it separately, but you're still working together. There's two people that actually come together during the process. It's easier if you write it right then, because if you wait a year or more, you'll forget what you wanted to, when you actually sat down and created that card. It feels like somebody else painted it sometimes.
Well, the thing that I did for all of my books is I started with a table of content. I figured out what I wanted to do in this, and since the Wizard's Pets is the subtitle is the ABCs, so it is, you can start fresh with this thing if you've never had another deck in your life, and because it is modeled after the Rider-Waite, most any tarot deck you pick or book that you pick up has got something to do with that particular protocol, and then you can just go from there. And I agree totally with what Anna's saying, but I didn't really know exactly. I just kept notes. I mean, as I would do one of the pictures, like for the Eternal Seeker, what I would do is, as I was creating the image, I just had a separate Word document where I was keeping notes. So I could go back and pull up that particular document when I was writing the book and thought, oh, that's what okay, got it. But you're right, because you do forget, or you don't see it, or both.
Okay, how do you guys feel about sending decks to influencers?
So what do you mean by influencers?
People that might,
Review.
well, maybe a review, or people who already have a following and now they're saying this is the deck. I know for the self-publish, it's very expensive to do that. So the influencer in my mind would have to have a really big following to make that dollar value worth.
I did that at the beginning. I did that only for a couple of people that I actually enjoyed watching. I used to follow a lot of people. So it was, I didn't just randomly send it to somebody that I didn't like enjoy their videos, like YouTube, because you also have to make sure that you're sending it to somebody who, even though there's so many tarot channels, some will resonate more with you than others, I guess. So I sent it to a couple of people. I think I sent it to 3. And then what happened was, once the deck started coming out and there I had actually got a lot of sales, I actually still have to this day, I have people contacting me and saying, will you send me a free deck if I will show your deck online on YouTube? And these are my, you know, I have 20,000 followers or whatever. I don't do that because, like, if they reach out and they want a free deck, I don't really do that. I went and targeted specific people that I enjoyed watching. Because, you know, it depends, like, because I don't know those channels, you know what I mean? Like, if I don't know them and I would have to go back and watch a number of videos to see if I really want my deck on that channel. So it depends on how you want to do it, but it's like, it's advertising pretty much. So regardless of, I mean, some people say, oh, you shouldn't do that. But the thing is, if you advertise on Facebook, or any type of promotion is advertisement. So if you don't advertise, you're not going to have a reach out. And if I don't have 20,000 followers, am I going to spend $35 to $40 in order to reach 20,000 people? Yeah, I'm going to do that. You know, like that's a way of doing it. It's the same if I do advertising on Instagram. There's an option where you can pay and have your post shared. I will do that occasionally too. And, you know, publishers do that in a different way. You know, they advertise, you have to have advertising, unfortunately, because we can't really reach globally our decks unless we do that. But I would say choose where you send them wisely, I guess.
I've also taken out ads in several different magazines around the globe. New Leaf puts one out called Evolve. I've talked to Mary Nail about her magazine. It's an online, Attune is an online magazine now. And then there's another one. Oh, what's the name of it? Anyway, it's out of the UK. I'm looking at several. They're not cheap, but I did notice that last year I took out an ad with New Leaf magazine. Okay, well, for their annual promotion thing, and my sales in the first quarter went up over $600. So I'm not gonna complain, you know,
Yeah.
because it was a lot less to put the ad in.
Yeah. Another thing that I've done online, which is kind of twofold, is put my deck on Google Alerts. And what that does is it shows you if somebody's using your name or your deck's name. But in doing that, I found people who've done reviews of my deck, or sometimes just Google the deck name and up will come different things that show up on the different YouTube channels. And then I try to share those out as well. And it's always, you know, when you're tooting your own horn, that's one thing. But when somebody else gets on there and is all la-di-da about your deck, that's so much nicer. And then to be able to share that with other people, that's a really good way to get your name out and stuff. And you can do like you said, the buying of the Facebook ads and stuff like that. And it'll go out wider, and you can set your audience and all of those kind of things. There's a lot of tools for self-promotion now that didn't used to be there, you know, but yeah. So advertising is part of your budget. And if you can get your stuff into Paula, you said Cartomancer magazine. I've had my art in that magazine a couple of times. You know, it's great if you can get your stuff out into magazines where you already have the audience that are interested in tarot. And that really makes a difference. So share each other's posts out there, folks. It really does make a difference, you know, to have somebody else toot your horn. Do you have any more questions or anything more anybody else wants to say? Or are we kind of...
Well, Jade asked about needing a business license to create a deck. No, you really don't, but you will need one when you file your taxes. Well, it depends on what country you're in. Like in the US, all I ever had was a DBA account, doing business as account. And then I could take my profits, loss, all of my expenses to my bookkeeper and say, here you go. And then take it from there. But I don't think that you'd really need a license to be an artist.
No.
Danica, what was the first couple of steps that kept you on track for publishing a deck? Passion for me. Roxy?
Well, I had a list on the wall, only 56 more to go, 55 more to go. And I had this running list on my wall, right? Because I kept thinking it was going to be the unfinished tarot, you know, because it took me 7 years to paint it, right? So it was not something that I just kind of whipped off. And so that was one way that I did it. And also, I'm going to go back to the Eclectic Tarot. Having an audience, or knowing that there was an audience out there, was really important. Well, now on Facebook, you know there's an audience. So, you know, that would be what you'd want to do is keep it in track and get feedback from people, because, you know, that was really cool to have other people see what you did, and because you really don't know. And it's a little bit vulnerable to put your art out into the world, especially something like tarot where people have very strong opinions and that kind of thing. So, you know, have a little bit of a tough skin there too. You know, and because they're all go at the very end. It's beautiful artwork, but I don't like the cardstock.
Yeah, I've gotten some, even with, you know, what I have out now, I've gotten some weird comments and some people's advice on how I could make the artwork or the design better. And I'm like, they'll email me and I'm like, thank you so much for your input. You know,
I'm going to ignore it totally. Yeah.
Yes. There's a few people I listen to, but generally, you know, again, it's a very, this is a very personal body of work for all of us. So, you know,
And it is something that changes you as you go through the tarot. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I lived all those cards. Did you live the cards when you're creating them? You do, right? And it gives you greater insight into who you are and greater insight who you are as an artist and all of those kind of things. So it is very vulnerable to put it out into the world and say, here's what I did. What do you think? And then have somebody go, well, I don't like this, or it's too busy. Well, yeah, it's too busy. I have a busy deck because there's other decks that aren't busy. And so if you're more inclined, then you buy that deck. But the idea for me was you read tarot. So I wanted to give them lots of things to read, lots of, and things that would jump out at them one time and be different a different time when they saw the card and different again when they saw the card, so that it was always lively and, you know, that kind of thing, and offered something new each time. So everybody comes at it from a different viewpoint, and then you have, oh, it's a computer generated deck. Well, that's not real art. I mean, poor Tiro, and it's just been like, so you really do have to have a bit of a thick skin, or just be able to go, thank you very much for telling me that, but I'm going to do what I want to do anyways.
Yeah, if you try and please everybody, you're never going to finish your deck. You can't.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no way. You can only do so. You can only paint and draw something that, because when you paint, it's all an internal process, right? It's like almost you're the filter. So if you have 20 people that will email you and request things or change this or make this, you're never going to find it, and you're never going to finish it. And then when you go and you publish it, you're going to have people hate it with a passion sometimes, and be mean about it. And then you're going to have people that are going to love it and love everything, just like with anything, right? There's books that are written and, you know, people love the book or hate the book, or it's in between. It's the same thing, music. But if you try to please you can try and do your best, be respectful, and just, you know, make sure that you're not being disrespectful on purpose or something like that, you know, but there's only so much that you can do. So, and it's not easy sometimes. So it's true.
Well, there's a smorgasbord of decks out there. Really, there is something out there for everybody. And you know, for people that are creating decks, even if you just create it for yourself, no matter how good your artistic skills are, there is still benefit in creating a deck just for yourself to go through the process and understand the structure and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's a very healing process to create a deck. And a lot of this other stuff just sounds like crazy, right? Like dealing with printers and publishers and books and templates and computers, and that's all part of it too.
I'd like to suggest something also, although my, am I coming through?
Yeah.
Good. One of the things I said earlier about having rules, and especially rules about, you know, where you begin, where you end, but because I actually directed my artist rather than being the artist, I had to convey to him my internal rules for what made a tarot deck workable. So that meant, and you know, these were thoughts I had when I was doing the writing for Tarot.com, is that, you know, not every user is a tarot, in-depth tarot person. And so they depend on us to have thought through what is the process that a reader uses to derive meaning from the cards. Like I hear this between the lines of everybody talking, you know, if you have a reverse card, you might want to have something for people to look at when it's upside down. The people are going to see these cards many times. You want them to be able to see something different each time. You know, I hear these thoughts and I realize if you don't know that, you're just going to ride on the work of your good creators who have done that thinking for you. And when you go to do your own deck, you might not realize they put their work through all these considerations. But, you know, for example, the 4 elements. If you are conscientious you can keep your metaphors within the way each element works, not only in the imagery, but also in the writing, so that you're using visual tropes that come from that element. You're using words that describe that element when you're writing, and so that you're allowing the user to fall into a prepared bed where it helps their thinking. They can see the water flow, they can feel the fire spark, you know, because you are driving that home through concentrating your efforts onto those. There's a challenge to engage people sensorially. And especially because I'm such an intellectual type of person and I work so much through words, I really depended on Michael's ability to grab people through the color, through the sense of motion and stuff. And so bringing your senses into not only the imagery, but also the writing, so that you allow the user, no matter where they are in their experience, to have a sensual experience with the cards. I think that's why people ask us, what would you say is in this card? Because they want to know how you look at it and want to look through your own eyes if they can. And I especially see this because my mother's really an art appreciator, but she depends on what the artist wrote in the little tag next to the painting in order to know what she's looking at. And that's just, we got to understand, we have those people here too.
Yeah.
They're present with your deck, and we need to give them something to chew on as well.
Yeah. What I did with my deck, because I didn't really follow the Rider-Waite or any, because when I started, I didn't know anything about tarot. And I just created, I would do a lot of research of different books and just wrote down notes for everything. And then I would figure out, how can I illustrate this? So I got into the language of flowers and runes and that kind of thing, and color and crystals to convey the meaning of the card. So in the back of my book, I did all of the listings, an alphabetical listing that explains what each of the symbols that I used in the cards mean. And then I did a whole thing with runes and everything like that, so that people can go through and go, oh, there's that rune in the card. What does that rune mean? So that adds more meaning to the card. So they could, you know, if they wanted to find out what a certain thing meant, I put all of that in the book, because I didn't follow the typical Rider-Waite symbolism. And so, you know, you can take it any way that you want to with it, but giving people, if you give everything that you feel that you've done, and then they decide to put the book aside, at least you've given them everything that you think you can to help them deal with your deck. And I really do think that having an editor, somebody else to read it, and all of that kind of stuff is critical, because we don't see our own mistakes. You know, and spell check doesn't catch everything.
No, they do
No,
not.
it doesn't.
Yeah. So this has been really wonderful. I think we've lost Paula. She had to leave.
Yeah, I have to run too,
We've had our
unfortunately.
time here. This has been wonderful. I've learned so much from all of you, because, you know, everybody has their own experience with this. And I just really want to thank Linda Marsden for allowing us to have this wonderful, you know, Zoom for as long as we wanted to. And I recorded everything except for the introduction. So I think I'll try to put this up on YouTube. And please share each other's posts out, and let's try to, you know, just do more of that kind of stuff, so that we can all help each other sell our wares and get our, it's not just about selling and making money either. It's a personal thing. It's very much, you've created this, and it's how many year journey that you've done and all of the rest of it. And it's not just about the money. It's more about, you know, sharing that experience with other people too. So any last words from anybody?
Thank you.
Roxy, if you post this on YouTube, what YouTube channel will it?
It'll
on?
be under mine, and I'm not sure what the number is, but what I'll do is post it on Facebook with a link, and it'll be under Roxy Artwork, or I'll put it on the Deck Creators page.
Okay, great.
Tag me.
You know, I think
I'll
that's
get it.
probably the best way to go. Put it on the deck creators page.
Bye, ladies. It was really nice being here with you all, getting
Nice
to
to
know
meet
you.
you guys.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Take good care. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for coming and
Bye.
all the questions.
Roxy, call me later if you need anything.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that up on the, once I figure out how to do the rest of it, I'll put it up on the deck creator page and then we can share it out. This was great. It's nice to see this come to this, hey, Pamela? Like from where we
Oh,
started.
yeah. I think this worked. Okay. Bye, ladies.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Take good care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Nice to meet
bye-bye.
you guys.
Sorry,
You can
I-
go to bed now, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
You're late.
It is late, yeah,
Yeah.
gone midnight. No, it's one, yeah, gone midnight.
Okay, have a good one. Take good care.
Thank you then, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.